Hello.
Zoom for government. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise,
Matchmaker.
The genre of romance, it's very easy to dismiss it as bullshit, but the truth is that will perfect all of us. Material is a love story, things like that.
Testing. Testing. We're getting a lot of reverb.
Jonathan, can you hear me?
Work.
Testing. 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 Can anybody hear us?
Yes, Jonathan, I can hear you. There's a lot of reverb, though.
There's a lot of reverb right now.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. Did that fix it? Is there reverb now, Joe?
It's the same.
Is the same?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, could we test it one more time? Let me know if there's any reverb.
That's much better.
Oh, perfect. Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. We are ready to.
Okay, we'll begin Okay, we already reviewed the consent calendar items, and now we start the meeting of the board, South Board, excuse me, South Board of Architectural Review of May 16, 2025. The first item on the agenda is public comment. If there are any member of the public that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda, seeing
We
none.
do have one letter that was left unaddressed from our last hearing from Ross and Ruth Every for 24 BAR 24 BAR-00146 for, and this was their letter that was submitted with a couple of aerials.
Yeah, you circulated this. This is the letter we got in the mail, right? In the email?
Yes.
Yes, okay. But that was for last week.
It was from last week,
Yeah.
but it was not brought up during the item.
Mhm.
It was not mentioned. And we just want to make sure that it was part of the record.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
So we move on to the agenda status report.
Nothing for the agenda status report?
SPAR members' informational briefings. Nothing to add?
I won't be at the next meeting.
Next meeting, okay. Anybody else? Okay. And staff update?
No update for me.
Okay, good. So we move on to the consent calendar then. Right. There were two items on the consent calendar. The C1 Kirkbride addition at 3830 Penn Place, and it was perfectly fine and complete. There was an item C2, Bashash Trust Addition at 1210 Franklin Ranch Road, also complete and ready to go. And so I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as submitted.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye. Motion carried. Okay, motion carries. So we move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the Leach accessory structures at, let's see what's the address is, at 4613 Via Ruby in the Goleta Valley. This is a request by Britt Jewell to consider a review of a remodel of an existing single-family dwelling, which includes replacing the existing roof, doors and windows. Oh, I didn't have that. I'm sorry. We're gonna go back. Okay. Okay. Let's proceed to approve the minutes of last meeting, which is May 2nd, right? Yeah. Are there? Let's see. Where are they? Yeah. Are there any comments on item 1, the Charles addition? Okay, let's move on to item 2, the Episcopal Church. Okay, let's go on to item 3, the Lucero addition. Okay, item 4, it's pretty basic. Item 5, the Slippery Rock Ranch accessory structures. The board is supportive of the modification. And the last item, the Carr Howard addition. Okay. Any comments from anybody? No. So is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? We need a motion?
Second it.
No, we need a motion.
I'll
Somebody.
make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Abstain.
Two abstentions? Okay, so now we are ready to go with the with the agenda. We move on then to the standard agenda, the lead accessory structures, a request by Bridge Jewel to consider a conceptual review and remodel of an existing single-family dwelling, replacing existing roof, doors and windows, hardscaping, pergola, interior remodel of approximately 1,000 square feet, new outdoor kitchen and dining area, new entry gate, site improvements, demolition of existing pool, and construction of a new pool. The existing structures remain on the property. The main residence of 3,000 square feet, attached garage of approximately 450 square feet. The project will require about 20 cubic yards of cut and fill. It's a half-acre zone 1E1 and at 4613 Via Ruby in the eastern Goleta Valley area. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Would you like to present the project?
Sure, my name is Brett Jewett. This is a modest project. It's principally an aesthetic update. There's no addition to the floor area or change in the roof forms. It maintains the existing size, bulk, and scale. And the lot development does not intensify use at the common property line, so all the neighbor privacy issues are maintained. Let's go to the next. Okay, so yeah, this is the existing house. We want to just update the forms, refine and modernize details. So go to the next. These are the neighborhood views. So you can see that there's not really much that the neighbors are going to see. They're far away and their houses are down a lot, so there's no real impact to the neighbors. Let's go to the next one. This shows the lot development. So you can see that the pool right now is moving away from the house, and it actually gets further from the neighbor. So it is moving the active outdoor area further from the closest neighbor. Let's go to the next. This is just illustrating that there are site sections. There's no change to the existing heights or volumes of the house. Go to the next. So this is the floor plan. We're cleaning up the interior flow, adding a pool bath, and going to rebuild an outdoor covered dining area. So let's go to the next slide. This is showing the roof plan, proposing a new metal roof, going to reduce overhangs and simplify eave details as part of the project. So we'll go to the next. This is showing existing and new. We're adding new steel windows, replastering the house to a smooth plaster, and obviously updating the roof and eave details with a metal roof. Let's go to the next slide. This really explains what's going on. As the house has unusual angles to it, so we have a developed elevation on the front, wherein we are standardizing the head heights of the windows, picking a couple common window types so that there's a consistency of the patterning at the entry. And then let's go to the last one. These are the next slide, please. That would just be 3D views of the project as proposed, showing the regularized windows, opening up some smaller windows to principal views, and just a general modernization of the existing structure without changing forms. And now let Scott talk about the landscape.
I'm Scott Menzel, the landscape architect. Is there a landscape plan maybe on the following page? Perfect. Front yard, we're at the end of a cul-de-sac. We are adding a vehicular gate, replacing a wooden fence on the west property line with a 6-foot stucco wall. We're not really changing the configuration of the front driveway. We're just changing surfaces from gravel chip seal to concrete. All new stone paving in front and back. In the backyard, as Britt mentioned, we are demoing an existing pool and building a new infinity edge pool right at the top of the slope. We have a very severe slope in the backyard, which prohibits a lot of development back there. But we're creating sort of a bi-level outdoor space. One big entertaining area off the house with outdoor dining, outdoor kitchen, and fire pit. And then pool on level is fairly level. And an 18-inch grade difference between the terrace off the house and the pool level.
Very good. Anything else? Questions from the board?
I have a question, Scott. On the west property line for the new wall, are you guys anticipating removing a lot of plant material along the property line there to accomplish that?
Not really. So there's an existing Peruvian pepper and a crepe myrtle. Both of those will be removed. But other than that, there's not an existing hedge there that we're impacting. So no.
Last question, that like we're below the pool there, is that, that's the low point there, is that like a creek or something like that there? There's no esh line coming from the house?
No, we're not in any ESH. Really, our limitation is that top of slope for development. It's basically from that top of slope all the way down to the eastern property line, a pretty steep slope, which we're not going to touch.
Okay, very good.
Is a pool equipment allowable in the setback like that? I didn't think you could put pool equipment in the setback.
My understanding is that the equipment and the pool itself can be within 5 feet.
5 feet, right?
I assume you're okay if you got this far through the planning. So,
Okay. Anything else? So let's move on to questions.
I have one question. Have you seen there's plans, it's a vacant lot next door on the west, right? Have you seen the plans? There's a pretty good sized development that was projected for that.
No, we haven't seen those plans, but we're moving most of the functions of the house to the east side. That's where the kitchen and the principal views are. That's where the active outdoor living is going to take place.
Right. So what did you say about screening along there? Because you may want more once that's.
Yeah, at this point, there's an existing 3-foot wood fence. It steps up
Oh,
at the house to 6 feet, and we're going to replace both of those with a 6-foot plaster wall.
Okay. Are we ready for our comments? Ready? We'll start on that side.
I'm sorry, we need to take public comment.
I'm sorry.
If anybody has
Have any members of the public that would like to speak on this project?
And we do have some people in the chat, so if anybody would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand, or if you are on telephone, *6 to raise your hand and *9 to unmute. Okay, it looks like we have no public commenters and we have no letters submitted.
Very good. Okay. Valerie.
okay. Well, I don't think I'm old, but I designed the original house in 1990, so 35 years ago. And it was after the original house before that burned in the Painted Cave fire. So I think that pool was all that was left from the previous house. But I'm very happy to see updating taking place and with very qualified design work. So it's good.
The pool is historic then, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great improvement to what's there, and so I think it's a modest project, but it it's going to utilize that property very well. And yeah, I think the change in windows is a great improvement, so.
I would say that architectural style is great, fine. The neighborhood compatibility is appropriate. Mass, bulk, and scale are non-issue here, so they're appropriate. Nice update to existing residents. So aside from, I think, maybe needing some more information on the landscape drawings, I would support bringing this back on consent for preliminary and final.
Yeah, I agree with all of the comments from my colleagues. I think it's a well-conceived project. Would like to see, yeah, I think I'm sure Scott has some nice landscaping proposed for the property lines and just replacing kind of trees on that western edge and potentially on the north property line as well. So look forward to seeing that, but I would agree with those comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with the positive comments. I think the way that you presented the existing and the proposed next to each other with the elevations was well presented. I like the way you reorganized the landscape for the property. I think it makes a lot of sense. There is no planting plant list that was provided, so that would have been helpful to have seen, but I'm sure we'll see it at the next round. So, I support you guys moving forward with it.
Have nothing else to add, positive comments, so we'll move this to the consent calendar then, if it's okay with everybody, for preliminary and final. Okay? Doesn't get any better than that.
Thank you, I know that. Thanks
So,
a lot.
You guys
Yes.
want to add a comment for the landscape, what you want to see at consent that's not here?
Well,
Real
we're
specific.
going to need a specific planting plan, and yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so it'll be a complete construction document.
Very good. Okay, great. So we move on to item number 2, Phillips new single-family dwelling, a request by Steve Welton to consider a conceptual review of one-story, 2,300 square foot residence with a 550 attached garage, 250 square foot loggia, another detached garage of 720 square feet, an attached restroom of 110 square feet, and an accessory building of 630 square feet, and a 336 square foot solar array. So there will be landscape improvements, driveway improvements, pedestrian gates, and fencing. The parcel is currently vacant, and it will require 1,700 cubic yards of cut and approximately 1,400 cubic yards of fill. It's a 1.6 acre parcel, Zone 1E1, located at there is no number, 00 La Riata Lane in the eastern Goleta Valley. So please proceed with Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Welton from SEPS Land Use Consulting, Caitlin Ernest from my office is here. I'll just go ahead and let the rest of our team introduce themselves.
Serena Edelson, Harrison Design. I'm also joined by Anthony Grumbine from Harrison Design.
Stacy Hargitay, Harrison Design for the Landscape Department.
Nick Zemke with Flowers and Associates. I'm the project civil engineer.
And we're also joined by our property owner, Chris Phillips, in the audience there.
Welcome.
Thank you. So this application is for a land use permit, also a recorded map modification. I want to give you a little bit of background on the property. It's originally was owned by Goleta Water District. They put it up for sale in 2005. There's a reservoir to the northeast that they still maintain. And in fact, they have an easement along the east property boundary that they still have to get access to that. So there's a driveway for that purpose. So Chris and his family are the third owners of this parcel. The second owner, Mr. Williams, filed for and received a parcel map to subdivide the property into 2 lots. This is one of them. I think you may have received a memo from staff regarding the policies about Eastern Goleta Valley Community Plan and slopes. There's a policy that addresses development on slopes greater than 30%. This parcel itself slopes pretty steeply from, I wouldn't say steeply, moderately steeply from La Rayada to the top. And the other part of the policy says that you should avoid slopes of greater than 20%, where it does not preclude reasonable use of the parcel. So our project team's going to address that. The overall objective of that policy is to retain the structural integrity of the geologic integrity of Eastern Galita Valley. We did an FAR analysis, just a brief one, looking at assessor records, just to compare for that, address that reasonable use argument. And our FAR for the main residences for both these two projects, item 2 and 3, came in below or equal to other neighboring parcels. Chris met with the 2 abutting neighbors to the north. It's not really relevant maybe to this parcel as much, but for the next parcel we get to in item 3 to talk to them about that project. Relative to this parcel, I just want to let you know that the Parks Department during that lot split project did require that we put a trail in along the southern part of the property, so that's part of the project. And the recorded map modification for this particular parcel is that there is a possibility of an earthquake fault that went to the property, and so we had Steve Campbell investigate that and confirm that there is no earthquake fault. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Serena to go ahead and walk you through this project, and we'll be back for next parcel.
Good morning. So like Steve alluded to, item 2 is the lower parcel, and item 3 on the agenda today is the upper parcel. And so we'll speak to them separately, but for all intents and purposes in our office as the design team, we've reviewed them holistically, and yeah, we can speak to that on our cover sheet. So if you want to zoom into the upper left image is a rendering, and we've kind of ghosted out the upper parcel for the sake of this set, but you can really see the 2 parcels together. One is the lower lot and one is the upper lot. And like I mentioned, it was important to us that these 2 parcels were cohesive architecturally as far as its landscape and also in concept. Chris and his family would reside in the upper parcel and then would like to rent the lower parcel to dear friends of theirs, a young family. And that was a big driver in the design. Historically, you probably see a larger building or estate further up the hill and then a lower kind of guest house or cottage on the lower area, wanting to preserve privacy for 2 families who are friends, but also want their own space. Kind of as far as architectural detailing, similarly, that the lower parcel home would have some special elements, but perhaps a little bit more understated as compared to the upper parcel's home. The views are also a valuable part of, and this is perfect, actually, can we look at the aerial view to the left first? So this, you can see the vacant lot. There's development on all sides, and so kind of suburban developments to the north and west and south, and then on the east side is actually the Greek Orthodox Church that's right there. And then that kind of vacant area you see just northeast of the property is part of that Goleta Water District property. And so, like Steve mentioned, the eastern portion of the property is also an easement shared by the Goleta Water District. So we can look at some of the images. First, top 2 images, A and B. These are views from the street. So currently it's actually an undulating site. You can see that back beyond this fence that's here, but also on the street is kind of undulating. And so part of the lower parcel will have to have a retaining wall to allow for the Parks Department's trail. Image C is the view from the west looking across both parcels. And you can really see that kind of undulating 2 parcels with the lower, there's like a lowest spot and currently a drainage system that's kind of center in front. And then image D is from the southwest corner looking towards the trail area. and the south neighbor. So that's the neighbor across the street. And then images E and F, these are looking south from the north neighbor's use easement area. So that northern neighbor, and we'll speak to this in site plan because it drove the design quite a lot. The northern neighbor has a view easement, a view plane easement over the western half of both parcels. And use easement, so we were kind of dancing around some of those elements as well. And then image G is from the north of the upper parcel, looking west. And image H from the southeast corner, that like Goleta Water District easement area, looking all the way across the lower parcel. And then the last one is just image I, this Goleta Water District utilities that are on the lower parcel. Can we go to the next slide? So it's such a treat. It's so fun to kind of start from scratch, if you will. There's a lot of neighborhood context like you saw in some of those images, but in general, a lot of the neighborhood kind of speaks to that Mediterranean-ish aesthetic, and fortunately that really suited the vision of the clients, this very casual Mediterranean warm feeling. The clients actually were drawn more to the warmer palette than like the white plaster, and so you'll see that in our color palette. But just this very casual idea of like maybe this was a larger estate and then a ranch home down below that could have been here for 100 years. And that's driven a lot of the design decisions. Okay, next sheet, please. All right, so now we get into the fun stuff and all of the really interesting, complicated things we're navigating. So on the west portion is the Goleta Water District easement. It's an existing drive and needs to be maintained. So part of the concept was keeping it for all intents and purposes, but having like a separate private entrance for the homeowners.
It's the east side.
Pardon me, the east side. And then on the west, you'll see this dash line on like, you know, about a little more than a third of the property. And that indicates the view plane easement that is from the northern neighbor. And so in addition to, you know, being respectful of the hillside ridgeline height, we're also living down underneath that view plane easement for the development here. We also needed and wanted to incorporate fire truck turnarounds. So you see that in the driveway next to the residence. And actually working through the drives and fire truck turnaround was really almost the major factor in grading and impervious surfaces because we need to meet the fire department's requirements. The concept for a lot of this siting was setting the buildings into the hill and really maintaining that existing topography, doing kind of subtle retaining walls in a few places so that we can kind of create this building that lives in the hill instead of like a big flat pad, and then needing to locate the fire truck turnaround and the drives in the flattest parts of the parcels. This family, like I mentioned, who would be living in this lower residence, has 3 young kids. And so part of that idea was to kind of tuck this L-shaped building into the hill to corral the young kids in there and kind of have a controlled yard that mom and dad could watch them. We also have a couple of the gates rendered here. So the gate on the upper left is what's proposed at the Goleta Water District easement. So it's currently like a chain across the road. And so it's, I think, really wonderful and generous that the owners want to do a new beautiful gate, but it's much more humble than the kind of main entry gate where you also get that like ranch aesthetic. The owners really love this idea that you could peek through and see towards the property. and then a complementary pedestrian gate on the street as well. There will be a couple of them. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy to speak to our landscape a little.
Hello. So we wanted to really encompass the idea of this Mediterranean hillside aesthetic and incorporating multiple olives throughout the property, as well as various tree species to give it more of a rural aesthetic. We have included a new 10-foot trail along the perimeter of the property on the south side, and that will be in addition and a really nice add to the overall site. You'll also see a new retention basin featured in the center there that'll have accent planting all alongside and hydroseed, as well as primarily low planting that will give us that natural native space within the site. We have multiple low retaining walls throughout. Mostly on this side of this is sandstone to kind of give you that hidden hillside look as well. Keeping with the end user in mind, you can see that back lawn turf area for the kiddos to play and to keep an eye on, featuring some tiered retaining walls in that back hillside. We do have a very generous setback from the property line. For any new proposed fences, we'll be incorporating screen planting that is illustrated there on the site plan as well. Next slide. Here's our proposed planting palette as it's developing. As I mentioned, primarily low-use water plants that'll complement the building, as well as provide layers of planting to help screen the overall building, but also provide a really beautiful garden space. Next slide. These are our concept details that are developing further as we continue through the design process. Next slide. We do have proposed landscape lighting throughout the property, all dark sky compliant, all downward facing. And the concept behind this was to really illuminate the pathways within the hillside. So as you're hidden throughout this rural property, we wanted to keep safety in mind. And so that's primarily the reason that we're highlighting certain trees at main entrances, as well as the pathways themselves. Next slide. Here's what we have specified so far for lighting. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to Nick for next slide.
Morning. I will touch base on the grading design and drainage. You can see here the overall grading plan for the lower lot and the design for the upper lot screen back. As Serena mentioned, we kind of looked at this design-wise cohesively. Our main goal was to minimize grading, but the overall slopes on the side are a major constraint, especially with an undeveloped lot. The flattest areas of the site are pretty much the existing driveway along the east edge, which is needs to be maintained for Goleta Water District's access. And that the low point in the lower center of the site, which is there's an existing drainage culvert that basically captures the runoff from both these properties and some areas to the north. Goleta Water's reservoir site and the property to the east both have drainage pipes that collect and run to that culvert as well. We are proposing to improve that along the southern edge with underground piping instead of using at-grade swale, rockline swale that exists to incorporate that new driveway. Another major constraint on this project was meeting fire department requirements for access, turnaround, as Serena mentioned. I think the overall average slope on this parcel is about 14+%, with areas over 20, 25. So getting a driveway to each structure, to the existing access driveway, and putting a turnaround at less than 5%, it creates a lot of grading. We try to minimize that by adding these low retaining walls. You can see we did a few tiered retaining walls to keep those heights down on the south side and the north side of the building. The other two accessory structures, the garage and the workshop shown here, will have deepened foundations and walls to try to match existing grade where possible. That will help maintain, the existing slopes and ground surface and terrain that exists on the site. To minimize our impacts with drainage and stormwater, we're trying to use that central southern location for our stormwater quality measures. That bioretention area will collect all the runoff from the impervious surfaces to a central place and use that as a landscape feature in the design. Should be aesthetic wise very nice. We are looking at possibly, with coordination with water resources, county water resources, treating the upper lot and the lower lot together. I think that's an option with Project Clean Water. So that basin might get a little deeper or reconfigured to make that work. And we've thrown a couple ideas out of having some overland drainage from the upper lot come through and with a culvert or something under that driveway where there is a kind of a larger slope to that main residence. So that might be something we incorporate in the future. Let's see.
Nick, I just want to add that you mentioned undergrounding that swale on the southern property boundary. We have to do that as well because the Parks Department requires a 10-foot wide trail, and that swale is right there on the edge of the pavement, so we have to make it 10 feet wide. So that's part of the reason we're undergrounding it.
Correct. You can move forward on the next slide if you want. So here's our stormwater design approach with the different drainage areas. I've touched base on that. You can maybe go forward. So with the recorded parcel map, there is easements for utilities through that southern lot for access or easements for access and utilities for the upper lot. And so the driveway location is actually located where that easement was originally recorded. So we were kind of limited to that unless we wanted to modify that with the map modification that we're going through. And also utility connections we're trying to use those existing easements as best as where available. So that kind of dictated where those structures and driveways were placed as well. You can keep going, Jonathan. Let's see. And we did have an updated slope map that we sent out, if is that possible to pull up? So because we wanted to get a little more detail, we did a slope analysis with less intervals on those slope percentage. And you can see kind of in the blue, those are the 10% and less. So really couldn't locate any of the structures in those areas for the reasons we've discussed. And we've located all the structures outside of anything over over 30% for the Eastern Goleta Valley Community Plan. There is some development on slopes above 20% but they're only include those retaining walls in areas where we're trying to minimize the grading best as possible. Thanks. Yeah, sorry.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think, Nick, did you have anything else on your sheets?
No.
Cool. You want to look at elevations? So we'll go to sheet 2300. Perfect. So this is the design for the main residence on this lower parcel, again, in that kind of ranch house language. And really just utilizing that front entry tower as our special architectural feature for this home that you would be able to kind of spot as you're on the trail or from the road. But kind of let this be just very sweet and like it could have been here for 100 years. Next slide. And this is just a sweet little garage to serve the lower parcel. And then next slide. Activity storage. So this is a family that loves bikes and canoes and boards, and probably will have some groundskeeping needs. And so we knew we wanted a building to serve that. That was handy, kind of accessible when you first pull in or out of the property. But we conceived it as if it was almost like a little gatehouse. So from the street, you just see these charming windows, and it's right up against the gate. I think it's pretty effective in that regard. Next slide. Oh, we can skip our boring specs. Perfect. So again, this is perfect because you kind of see the two sites in the whole. After this item, we can talk about the upper parcel. But again, just wanted to kind of emphasize the idea that we were really gracious with the right-of-way and push even fence and everything all the way back to the setback. So it feels like this kind of gentle rolling hillside property. And looking forward to your comments and questions. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So first, start with questions from the board. Maybe we'll start on that side. Robert?
Have you reviewed the landscape plan with is it a high fire area? I guess that's my first question. I believe it's a high fire area, isn't it?
Yes, it is in high fire. We will take that into consideration with developing the planting plan.
Well, I'll say it for the comments.
Thank you. I don't know who this question's directed towards, but could you guys briefly describe how the driveways are being used, or how it was a little unclear about the water district. Are they accessing the site frequently? And then is that driveway shared between the two lots? Or does the other lot have another entrance that they're using?
I'll take that through the chair. So as part of the lot split, as Nick alluded to, that central driveway was identified as the entry point for both lots. And so it then proceeds to the northeast and connects to that Goleta Water District easement. And then that is a shared access from that point north to the next parcel we'll be discussing. And then the other part that's on the east side is Goleta Water District's private access or access that they will use going forward to access the property. Does that make sense?
Thank you. On sheet C4, obviously, I believe we're seeing on your revised, the new one. This represents the proposed grading, correct?
No, those are existing slopes.
These are existing slopes. Okay.
Yes.
Did you do a color map for proposed version?
No, but we can provide that.
Well, I'm just trying to contrast what's existing to what's being. So I'm clear, like, is there, how much, maybe just by a percentage, like the increase or decrease in
overall
plus 20% or 30% slope?
If you can go to the, let's see, C1 maybe, there's a few areas, I think from the driveway south, where we had to fill that driveway in, so that there'll be some proposed fill slopes there. Otherwise, yeah, down,
So
sorry,
trying to handle the argument for, so
no problem.
the planner letter kind of indicates that the project may not comply with grading. Obviously, there's an exception in there that we could look at, but if that, what I'm trying to ascertain is how much of the new grading is creating additional, well, let's just work with the 30%. I'm not really interested in the 20% at this point.
And Josh, I think that letter is really more focused towards the wall above rather than this one from my discussion with planning. I don't think they're as concerned about this particular lot, is because if you look at that slope map, I think, very, by and large, we're less than 20% across this property.
Yeah, the only area above 20% on that lower lot is north of the residence, where we're having those tiered retaining walls above the backyard.
So can you kind of just I kind of got just lost in the presentation.
Sure.
Restate the argument you want me to have to get on board with your point.
Yes, thanks. So the Eastern Glider Valley Community Plan, again, you are required to avoid slopes greater than 30, greater than 20, you have to make the argument that, it's reasonable development. And then overall, we wanted to point out that the objective of that policy is to, what does they say exactly? To retain the structural integrity of the slope of the geologic integrity of the Eastern Glider Valley Community Plan. So we were trying to show you that we have done that on both parcels. In this case, we've avoided slopes entirely over 20%, except for the very far upper northwest corner, as Serena mentioned, which we're using to terrace into that slope to allow for a little private yard area. So and as Serena also mentioned, it's a very undulating parcel. So we're talking about very small portions that maybe briefly go over 20% and then back down. And so we didn't feel like it was it's not like we're doing massive grading on slopes over 20% at all, just a couple 100 square feet, I think at most.
And then the proposed slopes where we had to fill for the driveway, let's say between the driveway and the retention basin, we're trying to minimize those to 3-to-1, 4-to-1, not the maximum slope there.
And then we did look at shifting the house east and avoiding those slopes entirely, but I think you said that would require more grading if we did that and more retaining walls.
Yeah, it just creates steeper slopes on the driveway coming down from that shared access and those other two accessory structures. Makes it a little more difficult to fit that turnaround in there. A couple other things.
The only other question I had was, are there any other variances that you're asking for? Is it just the slope and the grading?
There's no variances per se, Amy, but yes, you're right. There is that policy issue that you're asking you to consider. No, the only other thing is part of the recorded map modification I mentioned to you that we're asking to remove that earthquake fault. And then on the other lot, there's a small amount of purple needle grass that's below the threshold for what we considered significant. And so we're asking to remove a condition of approval that speaks to that.
Thanks.
What are the heights of the retaining walls to the north and south? The two stepping ones?
John, do you mind zooming in on the structure? Yes. To the south, it's about 2 to 3 feet each one. To the north of that, those tiered walls, about maybe 4 foot max, 3 to 5 feet or so.
Okay. And do you have some site sections that go through the whole property? Because I think that would help with the slope issues.
We can definitely
And your
prepare
argument
those.
for why you put the buildings where you did and the roads where you did and.
Yeah, we can prepare those for the next round, for sure.
Yeah, maybe there would be a couple going across,
Yeah, I
right,
think,
east to west.
I
Yeah.
think we would need a few to show kind of the driveway and the rest
Mhm.
as well.
I have one question. Can you go to page 5, please? Yeah, that one. Yeah, it takes a while to load. It froze.
Stacy, you can just sketch that for us real quick?
There you go. Yeah, it's a basic question. I'm sure you thought about this a lot, but why do you need another entrance? Why couldn't you use the water, the existing access and widen it and improve it and put a nice gate or something like that? Why do you add? Is that the slope or what brought that?
So Mr. Phillips was not the original subdivider of the lot. It was the prior owner who actually is the neighbor to the north. And so the planning commission identified this as the access. So he doesn't really have a choice that to use this as the access point because that is the access that was identified in the lot split.
So it's already determined. Is that?
That's
It
correct.
just seemed like a lot of asphalt to to actually decide. 2 drivers instead of 1. That I was just the first thing that crossed my mind.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Williams wanted to avoid sharing the access with the water district for the most part, but I don't know all the reasons why it was selected.
I'll add also that the fire department wants that shared portion of the driveway to be 20 feet wide, where that existing driveway is not, and there's a lot of vaults and utilities that would prohibit that.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you can see those white boxes, Mr. Peugeot, on the west side of it.
Yep, I see the boxes, yeah, maybe. Okay, that was my question. Okay, very good. So do we have any public comment? Yeah.
We do have someone filling out a public comment speaker slip right now. If anybody else would like to make a, sir, would you mind filling out one of those public comment slips in the back right there? Just so we get your name for the record, and then we'll call you up. We have to do that during public comment, so.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. First speaker, it would be Alan can you read this? Williams, I'm sorry. Your penmanship.
Rare name.
Sorry. Yeah, Alan Williams. By the way, I'm having like post-traumatic stress watching this happen. Again, I'm really happy for the Phillips doing, and a lot of things that we did in the last, we were the prior owner of the property. And I'll speak to item 3. That's really why I'm here. But I had the answer to why there's 2 driveways. This was one of the traumatic things we had to go through. The fire department wanted a 20-foot access, and we only had 18 on the existing easement, and the Goleta Water District built that vault such a way that we can't go over it. So fire department requested a different access.
Okay.
It hurt. It's painful. These guys are awesome, and Philip, I'll talk later.
I knew there would be an answer for that.
state your
I'd just like to make a little comment. I'm Ernest Calendrianos. I represent the Greek Orthodox Church. We're the 4-acre parcel next to this parcel here. And I'd like to first comment that as a neighbor, we welcome you to the new neighborhood. We've tried to be a very good neighbor since we've been there for the last 39 years. And I look forward to having and seeing this property develop. Our concern, of course, we've looked at this property over the years of thinking of addition, but we didn't need 3 more acres to our 4-acre parcel. And our concern about it over the years has been the topography, the dramatic slope of the property. And also with heavy rains, we have a rock creek bed between our property and this, where the Goleta Water, the driveway up to the reservoir of the Goleta Water District. And with heavy rains, that creek bed fills up at least 4 feet or more with the heavy rain. So that's my concern to you, is the making sure that you can absorb the water. And it's from the foothills that comes down to that area. But I really want to compliment you on what you've done, and we look forward to having you join us.
Thank you. Dave Brown is, yeah. Yeah, Dave Brown, yeah, you can go to the microphone, yeah. Yeah. There you go, okay.
Hi, I live in the house on the northwest part, and my only question is just about what's going to go along that property line. Maybe it pertains more to the next home than this one. But is it, what sort of fencing or what have you? Because right now we have maybe a 4-foot split rail, which affords us a very nice view of the church, but I'm assuming that's going away. But I'm just wondering what's going to go along the line there. Otherwise, I mean, the property looks great so far, so.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else, anybody online or?
We do have a couple hands raised in our online chat. We have Kendra Duncan O'Connor. You have 3 minutes if you want to unmute.
Hi there, board. Good morning. I'm Kendra O'Connor, and I am a neighbor to 3 of the projects on your agenda today. And like the previous speaker said, or the previous project, I also was left with only a swimming pool after the Panic Cave fire, so that's always a concern. There's a reason why for 20 years this project hasn't been able to be developed. The slopes and the site constraints are great. And while everything around it has been developed, this project has remained vacant because of the slopes and the constraints. And a view easement puts even more of a constraint on this project. Also, a comment about the driveway is during the lot split, it wasn't really of a big deal to have the second driveway because all the development for this was proposed along that eastern side where it is flat. And I really appreciate the honesty of this project team in talking about the steep slopes and the challenges that they will be facing. My property is south of this and runs along the Blue Line Creek, which is Esch under La Riata Lane, where all of this drainage comes out. And every property owner who lines that Blue Line Creek has had to put hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million into protecting that creek from any development they have done. So it's a very, very big concern about the drainage from all these non-pervious surfaces that will occur after this development. I think that this project is beautiful and I commend them, and like I said, for being so honest about the constraints on this site. But I really, really recommend a site visit for this because it's a lot of development on a site that is very sloped and has a lot of challenges, and the drainage is a major impact on the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If anybody else would like to make a comment on this item, I do see we have a telephone speaker. If you would like to press *6 on your phone, if you would like to unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. Okay, seeing no other speakers for this item, we'll close public comment.
All right, so then we go to the board then. Yeah, here we are.
Mr. Chair, did you want us to address any of those comments? We're happy to, if you'd like.
Wait a little bit. So, to the board. Yeah. Valerie.
Well, I see that you do in fact have some major constraints that you're dealing with here, and probably a site visit is going to be a good way to go, because I think this is actually the easier site of the two, as well as getting those site sections to help us understand. I think it's always true that when a good civil engineering plan is implemented, it can help address the concerns about drainage that an existing condition can have. So the comments about the creek, are you saying that the detention basin area that you have is going to address that?
So currently, it's interesting. Valerie, currently the water is piped from the center of the property under the ground, under La Riata, and then it does enter a creek on the other side of the property. Alan mentioned all the stuff he went through as part of this project. We spent probably most of the time working with flood control and Project Clean Water to make sure all of those things were addressed. So I wanted to make Ms. O'Connor aware that the county was very aware of the drainage issues and stormwater issues, and so all the conditions of approval. In fact, they've commented on this project as well, and so Nick will have some work to do with Project Clean Water, but we're confident that we'll be able to address that in a safe manner.
So the detention basin that you're going to have is more to ameliorate your own property?
Well, with the recorded map with the parcel split, the flood control put a condition on this project to mitigate all peak flows to pre-developed conditions, which is not always typical for residential lots. So this is being looked at with
a higher
more
level.
stringent conditions on as far as drainage and mitigating the increase of impervious areas for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I had concerns about the second driveway as well, but understand the history of the lot split. And I think, the architecture is very nice and in keeping with the neighborhood and fine. I think maybe there could be a little more attention paid to the little equipment house that's right close to the driveway, just to maybe give it a little bit more character, because it is the gatehouse, as it were. So maybe organize the windows a little more. But yeah, I think the big concerns are the site, the topography, the drainage, the slopes, and a site visit.
I just want to ask one question in regards to one of the public comment, and that was, how are the property lines being addressed as far as fencing or planting around, I guess primarily the west and the north?
If we can go to the landscape plan, L1, but I believe they're all almost all called out as 6-foot wood fence or like metal fence to be screened with hedges.
Yes, that's correct. In addition to that, they will be, have the accent hedging along the property line, and then each of the retaining walls that were brought up in question, we can address on the next lot, are identified as well, as far as material.
Okay, yeah, I guess the northern one was really, I guess, probably for the next item, so it's mostly the west. Okay. I echo a lot of what Valerie had mentioned as well. I think the architecture is nice, but I think obviously the big issue is the slopes and the grading, and even just kind of taking a look at the memo and it noting that design changes are expected. So I think, I support the use of like developing the lot. I think it just needs more study. And I think the comment about having some site sections, multiple site sections, will help us really understand how you're siting the buildings and how it will work and how you're addressing the drainage. So, thanks.
Thank you. So Josh, should I continue? Yeah.
Architectural style's great. Mass bulk and scale seem fine, and the architecture seems very compatible with the surrounding community and immediate neighborhood. So I think those things are kind of put to rest. We'll look forward to seeing more development on those items, but I think the architecture looks to be moving in a very good direction, very supportable. The one thing I would say about I assume it's north, right? Up is north on these sheets. So the northern parcel, one thing that I've kind of noticed in just looking at your documentation is just fairly balanced grading, right? I think it's 1,700 cut and 1,400 fill. So we're looking at a balance of about 300 there, which is, I think that needs to be noted. A balanced site is an important, I think, step in the right direction to get design practice around grading. The grading on the lower site, has to accommodate a lot more work, right? So there's obviously more grading, a little bit export there, right? But for the overall size of the property, it's not I wouldn't call it an extraordinary grading project. It's pretty typical. It's actually kind of subtle given the size of the property. And it is a single family residence, but there's a lot of road work that has to be done, retention basin. And if the solution to controlling water runoff and making sure that the project maintains itself, contains its runoff, sends it in the right direction, then the grading really needs to be allowed to happen to do that. So I'm kind of with Valerie in that if the comment of kind of that, a good grading project will solve a lot of problems here if it's done well. Having a qualified civil engineer looking at it with the county, puts a little confidence towards that. And I understand the neighborhood or the comments from the neighborhood or neighbors that are concerned about that. I would be too, but seems like we have a very competent team here with a real serious intent. So I think as long as we keep pushing in that direction, I don't see anything at the moment that has me finding any exceptional of what you're doing. I'd like to see it move forward somehow. I don't know. I mean, you have I'm a little on the fence about a site visit. But if, I'll just defer to the others on that. I don't really have a strong opinion the other way.
Here.
Yeah, I concur with most of those comments. I think it's a really well planned out project. Maybe I can comment a little bit about the ordinance, the 30% ordinance. I think that my view that, this should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that the ordinance intent is to preclude a project like this. I think you guys have really worked to accommodate what you could. I guess maybe a question would be, is there any part of this project that you would have changed if that ordinance wasn't in place? Do you feel like this project is at all being undermined simply because you were avoiding very little areas of the 30%? I know it's hard to answer at this point. You guys are very far along, but I think you guys are where you're at. I think it's a really nice layout. I think one of the comments, I shared the concern about how much driveway is being shown, but I understand the history of the project now. I do think that there's some really nice imagery on sheet 3 of more of a rustic nature. I think that's what you guys have been showing throughout the project, and I think there's a note about exposed aggregate concrete, and so it would be nice to see some details next time of that. But anywhere you guys could break up the driveway into more of a rustic nature, maybe chip seal, cobbles, things like that I think would be really complementary to the architecture. And then along those lines, I think there may be, seems like you have a really competent civil engineer on board, that you would be able to maybe put a little bit more movement in the driveways to respond to the slopes. I think, you guys are showing kind of a more rural development, and it feels like there could be a little bit of curvature, some type of play in the driveway, particularly at the fire turnaround. Potentially that could be hidden a little bit more to kind of blend with the landscape more. But I think as the landscape development progresses, then that'll be worked out. But overall, support the project.
Robert?
Yeah, I'll echo the positive comments. I think it's great how you guys did your slope analysis and then the way that the buildings have found themselves in the various spots, I think works well with, when you look at both of the parcels combined, it's kind of nice how the main house on the top seems to balance in relationship to the other structures. One concern I have is about the high fire requirements in relation to the landscape plan. I just went through this with another project where you guys got to study the high fire stuff, because you can't have any, I believe you can't have any planting within 5 feet of the building, and then they don't want any trees within 10 feet of the driveways. So there's going to be some pretty big analysis and like kind of reconfiguring some of the landscape here, and also like some of the materials. Like I'm not sure about having wood fences and wood gate and all that. So I'd encourage you guys to kind of dig into that part of it. And I think the overall concept for the landscape in terms of the choice of planting is effective. I would look at trying to group these trees a little bit where it doesn't just feel like they're kind of scattered everywhere. And I think that's going to be kind of part of the high fire requirements. So anyhow, I think it's a nice project. I like the concept of the little gatehouse by the gate. It all comes together nicely. To echo Kier's comment about maybe undulating some of the pieces, that pedestrian entry path feels like it could maybe have a little bit more of a natural rhythm to it that comes from the roadway there. That was just something that kind of stuck out to me as being a little different than the rest of these paths that you've established around the property. But I support your guys' project, and I think you have a lot of defense in the way that you've laid it out in terms of the presentation you've given here.
Well, yeah, I agree with all of those comments. I think the high fire comments is interesting and should be clear right away. I like the comments about the driveway and the pedestrian path, just to soften them in any way you can, changing materials, that kind of a thing. No, I'm not sure. I'm ambivalent about the site visit. I'm not sure how much we're going to see. Here we have proposed retaining walls of a maximum of 5 feet, 2 to 5 feet. And there, I imagine there would be sandstone, and I'm not sure what we're going to see on the site visit. So I leave it up to the board just to, if you read, I can go either way.
I think the site visit would be more in the context of both parcels together, and particularly the upper parcel. And because it's the 2 parcels, it's a bigger scope
Okay.
than a typical single-family residence.
All right. Maybe we'll combine those 2. I mean, if that's what the board wants, okay, fine. All right. So I think those are the comments. So we'll see you next at the site visit, or after the site visit.
So are we turning for the conceptual?
Conceptual and conceptual and preliminary, I would imagine, right? I mean, conceptual. Return as conceptual. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead. Okay. All right. Very good. So
Just conceptual, to be clear. Yeah. Okay. Same team. I mean, same team.
Okay, all right, good. So we're moving to number 3. The description is a little bit different. The residence will be a 2-story, 5,300 square feet, an attached garage of 950, a basement of 2,300 square feet, a loggia of 300, a pool cabana with 376 square feet, and a pool equipment storage of 113 square feet, a pool, spa, and a 336 square foot solar array. God, they have the both sides. So those solar arrays are they come in sets, like 336, is that? Is that okay, anyway, so the project is, the address, I'm not sure what the address is here.
0, yeah,
Zero.
for now.
Okay, like Riata Lane. Okay, so let's see the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief since you've heard most of it and you've heard the background. This is the northerly of the two lots. It is an interior lot for purposes of setback, just so you know. As mentioned earlier, Mr. Williams, prior to selling the parcel, placed a view and landscape easement on the west side of the parcel. So that is something that we have to work with in terms of this project. And then we have the Goleta Water District easement on the east side of the parcel, and then we have slopes and we have the policies. So it's definitely a fun project for Serena and the team to work with. But I'll hand it off to Serena to talk about how we worked with the slopes and made a good project.
Can we zoom into the upper left image again? So, and again, this is kind of nice because we don't have to go through everything from start. But again, so now for this upper parcel, the idea is like, this is probably the like slightly grander, finer home further up the hill. And it works really beautifully with the concept. You can see some of these peaks of balconies or things. The views from this part of the property drove a lot of the design decisions, especially the plans. So we can take a look at that. And then of course the view, easement, and restriction. One of the things that's very important to us as architects in our office is like, you wouldn't just see big garage doors on the front of the house. And so it's very important, you know, as if this was built in the 20s, that you'd kind of have that approach. You'd see the peak of the home up on the hill. As you get closer, you have the screening, and then you work your way around into the motor court and open those doors and see the view. And that was a big driver, I think, in a lot of the design work that we were doing as well. Okay, can we go to the site photos? And I'll just speak to image C, that a big pano there. So this is the view from the kind of upper west part of the upper parcel that has that view plane easement over it. And again, this is the slightly flatter part of the site. The views are quite nice also up back towards the mountains. So it made a lot of logical sense. Like, this is a place you could probably put the pool. It's flatter. We wouldn't have to worry so much about the view plane above us, and then have really nice views from standing there. And then image G. Bottom, just to the left. There we go. So perfect. This is kind of standing at the northern property line, looking west towards the neighbor's use easement and on the western part of the property. So you can see there's actually quite a bit of screening already established on the neighboring parcels. And so we want to complement that. We recognize, and you'll see in our plans, we actually have a couple tiered retaining walls there. So we like situate ourselves down and around that existing landscape screening. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please. So it's the same inspiration imagery palette. Again, we want them to feel like this could have been one cohesive property. But this upper parcel gets some extra architectural detailing that might be appropriate for its larger kind of scale. And then our site plan. So next slide, perfect. And you can see the footprints of the neighbors and kind of how we're trying to work with them. And so the pool area and its little cabana situated within that western half of the property that has the view plane easement. And then the main residence with its fire truck turnaround, and that actually worked pretty nicely in that we want that to be generally the flattest part of the parcel. We didn't want to have a two-story structure right up against the property line. Because this is an interior parcel, there's actually a little bit more latitude for what the setbacks are. And so even though that's an interior setback on the northern property line, we actually have it at 17 feet to give a little bit more breathing room for, both for the Phillips' sake and for the neighbor's sake on that northern side. And then again, it allows the fire truck turnaround to kind of be in the setback, take advantage of it as much as possible, and on the slightly flattest part of this parcel. Let's see if there's anything else. I think just that there's similarly on the sheet, we have an elevation for a Goleta Water District gate on the north part of the access to the Goleta Water District property. And then this is a mismatch. We show on accident the lower driveway gate, so that can just be disregarded. And the next slide is landscape. I actually find this most easy to talk about the site planning and especially floor plan. So I'm going to speak a little bit to it here. If we can zoom in just ever so slightly to see this plan. On the east part of the building's footprint is the primary suite. And from there, you actually have quite nice views down towards Goleta Pier. It was also important for the owners that they kind of pull themselves and have a quiet area that's further away from, the hangout zone at the pool for the primary suite. But they also like the idea of, being able to look out the window as people are arriving when they're getting ready. And so that was a valuable part of pulling that scope to the east. And then the main living space is that great room, and you'll actually see it manifest on the elevation as well, but kind of the one big space where everybody can gather. Their current residence has a little bit of separation, and that's just not the way that they live and entertain. And so it actually worked really nice with the architecture. And then we have an outdoor dining loggia, and that property kind of opens up and then spills out and down towards the pool as you would organically expect when you are entertaining. Where are people gonna eat and see a cool view and wanna walk down and hang out by the pool? And then this is a great opportunity to speak a little bit to that layered screening on the north and west corner of this property. So we have tiered retaining walls here as well. They step down a couple feet and a couple feet right there in both of those areas, so that they're actually down a little bit lower than the current grade. That serves the ability to put that pool cabana there, but also kind of creates that separation and privacy from both sides with the neighboring parcels. Stacy, do you have handy the heights of those retaining walls?
Oh, I can speak.
Oh,
to that.
Nick knows off the top of his head.
Yeah, 3.5 foot max. We tried to break them up, as you see, that has the two tiers along the west and the north side. So that's keep it under 4 feet.
Exactly. And we even pull that pool cabana east a little bit to give it some space, and then have a buffer zone of veggie garden potting area, which we thought was nice to, instead of just pushing the structure all the way right up against that setback. And it also serves the southern property. So there's that area to meet up with the fire pit coming from the neighbors to the south. And then also to the neighbors to the south really love gardening, and so that they have kind of easy access to the veggie and potting area as well. Stacey, do you want to add more on these plans?
Sure, if you can scroll to the right a little bit on the image, I just want to highlight. So we're proposing an olive grove as you enter the property, just to kind of help screen the building and to help it set into the aesthetic of the rural residents. And that continues throughout the hillside area. As you're walking through, you'll walk across the citrus grove, and we take advantage of the slopes and that we create these meandering paths throughout. Accent flagstone steppers throughout those paths as well. And then if you go over to the left a little bit more, as Serena pointed out, we do have the planter boxes near that seating area to create a cozy space for them, as well as a less formal area compared to the outdoor seating by the property. One thing I did want to address was the question regarding the property wall. So if you scroll up, you'll see we're proposing, nope, sorry, there you go, a new retaining wall. Height varies between 6 inches to 5 feet. We're proposing a stucco wall, but it does help set the property down and create that flat pad. So it shouldn't be above grade and freestanding and exposed too much to replace that split rail, but it will provide a nice cozy space for the driveway area.
Stacy, you mentioned, when we talked earlier, you talked about your choice of the olive trees. Did you want, since there's a member of the Greek Orthodox Church here, I thought maybe I want to chime in on that part.
I'm sorry.
The representative of the Greek Orthodox Church and the olive tree.
Yes, yes, to bring that same aesthetic through the entire property and to complement it so it doesn't feel like it's out of place within the hillside. Did you touch on the spa area? I don't think you did. By the master suite, we have a nice cozy spa and hidden by screening planting as well. Throughout, we'll continue the same palette and low water use planting primarily to keep us in line with wood goals. Next slide. Same proposed planting for now. We'll continue to develop this and take your comments into consideration. Next slide. Same concept details. And I believe the next one is lighting. Again, so we continued the concept of safety throughout the property and highlighting the pathways and the steps and really featuring the areas that we wanted to as far as the entry and some pool trees as well we wanted to enhance. So we provided some down lighting by the pool property. Next slide. Lighting proposed. And I think I'll hand it over to Nick.
Thank you. I won't go into all the details here. It's basically same design as the lower lot. We did what we could to minimize the slopes and earthwork and grading to extent feasible. This parcel is obviously more constrained than the lower lot. I think the average slopes across this parcel is 15%, but when you take out the Goleta Water District easement and that backyard easement and setbacks, we're 17+% average slope. Not, the view easement not included in that developable area really can't sustain a residence. That cabana had to be pushed down quite a few feet just to get a 10-foot, ceiling height on that. And maintain that view easement. We have retaining walls along the north side to push kind of all the structures down, try to match the existing grades at the southern end best possible. As Stacy said, I think up to 5.5 feet on that northern driveway wall, and then the ones tiered around the pool are 3.5 feet max. The design incorporated, steps and multi-levels here to try to accommodate the change in grade. All our development is outside of that 30%, which is really congregated kind of at that lower southern portion of the site. There is few areas above 20% at the main structure. We could go to that slope map if that I sent out, the updated sheet. But really, if you zoom in on the residents, some of those areas in orange, which are about 20 to 25%, the average slope across those are closer to 20, 20. Some are less than 20, 22, 23 maybe max. So we've really tried to cite that. And also, actually, Jonathan, if you can go up to the upper right, kind of laid it out as a developable area, and you can see we're very limited in where we can locate that structure. We needed to make sure that fire turnaround was less than 5%. Made sense to use the driveway along the north side to break up the structure from the neighbor's property. You know, grading and developing on slopes, there's going to be grading, as Josh alluded to in the previous one. This lot, obviously, the quantities are a little bit more, but maybe 20% is accounted by the, detention system to maintain the proper drainage control, and the pool area. It's gonna have a high percentage of that cut. The design team located the basement area on the lower, the lower southern portion to kind of step down the slope. We do have some fill on the southern end, but we've tried to maintain that existing grade on that southern edge as best as possible. That way, we're not disturbing the natural terrain. And I think that kind of tells it all.
Anything else?
Yep, we're gonna look at the plans. So A2000, I don't know the PDF number, I apologize. Let's see. Can we go up like 3 slides? Oh, interesting. One more, please. Great. So this is the floor plans for the main residence. We looked at quite a bit at the main level. There's a partial second story for just a couple bedrooms. Conceptually, if this was a house that was built in the 20s, like this area might have been almost that service wing where you have a couple bedrooms upstairs, but they're relatively kind of humble. And then if you scroll down or pan down, we have a partial lower level, and that actually takes advantage of the slope and daylights to the south side. It's nice architecturally, and it's also nice functionally. We know that like volume is technically there when you tuck the building into the hillside, and it felt like a really wonderful way to take advantage of that. And then next slide, please. This is the roof ridgeline diagram. So we know that we really wanted to make sure that we were conscious, even at this early stage, of our ridgeline heights, and we fall really gently below that. So that helped us feel good too about where the design was going. Next slide. You can keep going. That's wonderful. I'm not sure where that ended up. Cool. And then these are the elevations of the main house, and I can talk you through it just quickly. So let's see, from top to bottom, this is actually the view from the approach. On the right-hand side, you have the balcony at the primary suite. And then the kind of main building mass, that is the great room. You'd have the largest windows, and it's kind of the kind of principal or primary building mass on this structure. And then to the left, you have that covered loggia, outdoor dining area, and then the terrace that steps down towards the pool. The second elevation, this is elevation 3 actually, is the north view. This is the view from the motor court. And so you see, as you drive around, have that sweet tower element that actually has a stair on the interior. And then the view from the main motor court is that most formal elevation with a door at the center, and then the 2-story element to the right-hand side. But we were really thoughtful about like the plate heights and like the volume of the massing, how the roofs actually technically work and can function as a roof, but also so that they feel right and they feel proportional to each other. Next, I think, oh, perfect. So then this is the, elevation 2 is the view from the pool area, if you will, and this is at least partial site section on just this upper parcel, but kind of taking advantage of the hill and the way that we can step down towards the pool area. And then the lowest elevation is that view as you'd be coming up the driveway and see this layered kind of series of buildings, the tower, and then the further back, that second story element. Next sheet, please. So this is the pool cabana, and we actually went back and forth on, do we do something on this? Can we actually get a structure on this side is the first question. And so what we did was actually it steps down from the pool deck level 1.5 feet. So you have like a little seat wall that you could sit on in this pool cabana. And we take advantage of retaining walls to have this be able to be perfectly comfortably underneath that view plane. And it was important just functionally too, if you're now down at the pool, it's nice to have a restroom and snacks nearby, but also when you're looking down towards the pool area from the terrace, that there's like a back, you have almost like if you're creating an outdoor room, you have that end that's inviting you down there. So that was some of the design concept we were thinking through of how do we make sure that that feels like a destination. Okay, next slide, please. It looks like we've got our specs and then a rendering. And again, this has really been a lot of exercise and thought. This is the first time you guys are seeing this, but we've been really working at this for many months because there's a lot of interesting constraints. Like Ms. O'Connor said, this is not the first time I've started a parcel that's vacant, like, now I see why nobody's developed on this yet. It's tricky, and we're so grateful to have the Phillips who are excited about this project and really plugged into the area. They've lived in this area for a long time. And so we want to be really thoughtful and create a design that is sensitive to all those things. And so again, looking forward to your comments and next steps on this one.
Thank you. I know this has been a long presentation. Yeah. But you guys are usually home in bed by 10:30 these days with your agendas. And I also just want to mention that Chris is an adjacent neighbor right now to the west, so he's very familiar with the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Very good. Questions from the board? No more questions? Then
We have no letters submitted, but I would like to give opportunity if the same speakers would like to come up and speak again on this project. We could start with Alan Williams.
Again, Alan Williams. We're grateful for the Phillips, good neighbors currently in lot number 2. We're very blessed to live in this neighborhood. And one more thing, while you're doing all this, we also purchased a lot in Mississippi, cleared it, built a 3,600 square foot house. That happened in January, and our relatives moved in October. So in 9 months, we bought a lot and everything happened in 9 months. So again, I think what you're doing here makes for great projects, but man, the Phillips got to be strong to get through this. And I'm glad that they're picking up the ball because it's a beautiful property. I'm speaking today mostly on behalf, because we did protect our views. Thank you for respecting them with the view easements that we put in. And the Phillips came and spoke with us and the Jenkins, who have the house directly above this. And so I'm kind of speaking more on behalf of the Jenkins today. And I know that there is no such thing. If you don't have the view rights and the view easements, you have no rights here. And I think the Phillips have done a pretty good job of trying to accommodate that. And again, we're blessed to have them as neighbors and the Jenkins as well. I'm here to lobby for whatever grading things that I guess are like optional and have issues. I have mowed that lot for 10 years. Okay, no one has spent, you know, I mowed it at least 8 times a year because we liked it, keep it really short and it's fire area, but we love the short look. I have ridden my riding mower on all the red zones. Those are the most fun to mow on. But during that time is when we owned the lot, I'd envisioned how we were planning to develop and all the different ways we could do this. I'm lobbying for additional excavation. It solves many problems and accommodates the neighbors, particularly the Jenkins. I think Chris Phillips had said that I think the main house up above is built at 436 elevation. So when Chris was out with the Jenkins and I was the guy holding the story pole. I went and got my pool skimmer and I said, okay, I'm standing about where your garage is. And if I go 436, that's 4 feet down from current grading, and I'm holding it, this is what your view is gonna look like. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I had a time limit. Okay, bottom line, if you lower the elevation from the 436, if you give them permission to do the grading that they need to do, if you drop that about 6 feet, there's plenty of room. Some of that fill is going to go right to the northeast corner, okay, which actually would raise the elevation of where the master bedroom is going to be. Their views will actually improve. The Jenkins will not lose because their views right now are going to be totally obliterated. But if it goes down 6 feet, it's kind of accommodating.
All right, thank you, sir.
And we do have one online speaker. Kendra Duncan O'Connor, go ahead.
Hi there, it's me again. I'm so grateful that this house is so beautiful. It is really, really a beautiful home. Again, you did hear a lot about retaining walls because there's a reason. It is a lot of development on this parcel, a lot of, impervious surfaces, a lot of retaining walls. And the landscaping is beautiful, but it's a state fire code that nothing can be 5 feet within the structure. And we are all dealing with that right now, trying to work our way through that kind of thing with pergolas and wood fences and things. But again, the drainage is a major issue. And one other comment about the landscaping, pathway lights and uplit trees are going to make this hillside look like Del Boca Vista. I mean, it is such a beautiful area, and these are beautiful homes and they are beautifully done. And you can't ask for really more than that. It's just a lot of development for this parcel, and the runoff is going to be, right now the runoff is huge. It's going to be really, really intense. And the lighting is going to be intense. So I'd ask that you look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is our
Anybody
last
else?
public speaker. That is it.
That was it. Okay, so we'll close the public testimony and we'll go to comments from the board. Who would like to start? Okay, please.
My comments are similar to this property. I think the architecture is beautiful. I like the approach that you're taking to make it feel older and rural and kind of nestled into this constrained site. I think the pool layout looks great and the cabana at the end of it. And so I guess I would just still say probably there's enough scale of development here that we should do a site visit and get a sense of these slopes and the site sections. But architecture is very good.
So who would like to follow?
Joe, for the record, my comments are pretty much the same as the previous, so I won't belabor the point, but I already spoke about the grading condition on this site, which maybe those comments should carry to this item. Again, mass, bulk, and scale, neighborhood compatibility, architectural style, quality, it's all going in the right direction, very, very supportable. You know, I think the comment made from the public speaker was, you know, I think some of that comment was also about really tending to that landscape and the impact of vegetation landing on a currently bare site. You know, it really is going to intensify the site, you know, but as long as it's done beautifully and correctly, I think it's, you know, so attention needs to be given to that, obviously, but it's, I believe it's moving in the right direction.
I echo those comments. I didn't really have I missed the question, but is the gate to the northeast, is that the main entry for this residence?
The gate to the northeast is actually accessing the Goleta Water District Reservoir. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think you guys have put a lot of thought and energy into this project and taking care of solving some of the grading challenges that you guys have, like the siting of the building and the pool. I think that works nicely. Yeah, I think it'll be descriptive to see the site in person. I kind of agree with that comment that both of the projects together kind of make it pertinent that we look at it all together, but can support the project as well.
Robert?
Yeah, I echo the positive comments. Just I had a few thoughts. Maybe Jonathan, could you go to page 19 with the elevations on it, please? That south elevation. So this is just a one-story residence, like where that living room is at, right? So is it just kind of empty space underneath where the floor is at so that what you got dimension there, like where you got those 3 main windows in the living room, like how tall is that wall? That's like a 20-something foot tall wall there, yeah? Just feels like that facade could be broken up a little bit. I mean, if you look at the dimension on the side, it says 10 feet and then 16 feet. So it's like, it's got to be like a 20-foot wall. Feels to me like you could have a little porch or something or some kind of feature there that would soften that really big wall. So I would just encourage looking at that. I mean, the rest of the house has these nice qualities of engaging the landscape right there. It's just, with your limitation of putting planting up close to the building, I think you're going to find that's a big wall, and it's also right on the side of the slope. I really love your guys' pool cabana. It feels like somebody could pull their horse up right next to it. Really well designed, so great on that. And then I thought there might be an option. Could you look at the landscape plan? Let's see, where that's page 5. Maybe your motor court could have some kind of detailing to it that defined it as being different than the rest of the paving for the whole site. It's just something you might consider, because you have a whole lot of driveway material, and maybe there could be some unique paving in the motor court that would set it off as the main house. Those are my comments. I think it's a great project.
I spoke? Yeah, I agree with those comments. I think it's very well articulated. It's a good project. I agree with the comment about the landscape lighting that was mentioned. I would pay a little bit of attention just to see exactly how that will work, because there are a lot of trees. It could get overboard. Regarding we're talking about the site visit. What do we expect to see on the site visit?
One more comment before
Okay,
the site
sure.
visit. I just wanted to say I echo the comment about the paving in the motor court and looking to break that up. But then going back to the site sections, I think it's going to be important that those sections really cut through both parcels, but also include sort of the heights of the adjacent property, so we can actually see what the relationship is, and that's obviously more important for this upper parcel. So I just like you to consider that.
So what does the board want to do at that site visit? Do you want story poles? Do you want some kind of delineation of where the structures are going to be? What's the expectation? Nothing?
I was thinking maybe just
Yeah, just like markers, not full
kind of
story poles.
So delineate the main, especially on the upper, I mean, the main structures, like the corners, some rope or something?
Yeah, however they would want to just mark, sort of locate where the structure is.
Okay, if is that the consensus? Yep. Okay, so we'll do that then. We have a question from the. No, I think it's for both. Yeah. I think the upper will be more important, I imagine. Yeah.
Could I make a quick comment on, I just want to comment on the landscape lighting, because I think that came up a couple of times, but it didn't appear that there are any uplights in the plan. So the intention is just downlights on pathways and pathfinding, correct?
Downlights for all the trees that were highlighted in the planting plan, and then the path lights throughout the pathways. No uplights.
Anything else? Okay, good. So thank you so much. We'll see you at the site visit. Thank you for the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
We move on to, is that it?
That was the last item.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, that concludes the meeting of this S-Bar. That's it.
Okay, we adjourn at 11:04.
Adjourn.
Thank you.